Welcome to A Court Behind the Mask, where the stories of the Fae, mortals, and everything in between come to life. In this podcast, we dive deep into the hidden corners of Prythian, unearthing the lives of its people. Join us as we follow the paths of those in a land where nothing is ever quite what it seems. This is their world, their truth, and their fight. I'm your host, Lucien Feyre. Let's get started. Welcome back. Tonight, we're doing something a little different.
Different good or different bad?
Hopefully good.
Okay. I'm listening.
So we're settled by a crackling fire, sipping something warm.
Very cozy.
And we're going to reminisce about the past a little.
Look back.
You know, our listeners are curious about your life.
Before Prythian.
Yeah, before you came to Prythian.
Oh, okay. I can see where this is going.
And, well, they want to know how we saw each other.
Yeah.
In those early days.
Yeah. Well, I suppose. Some memories are more pleasant than others, though.
Fair enough.
Here?
So let's start with your life back in the human lands.
Back in the human lands.
Like, paint a picture for us. What was it like living so close to the wall in that little village?
Grim. It was grim. It was a constant struggle, especially after my father lost everything.
Who lost everything?
He did. Hunting became less a pastime and more a necessity. Our very survival depended on it.
You know, it's easy to romanticize the human worlds from our perspective over here, but the sources you shared really highlight that harsh reality. Always on edge, never knowing if you'd see the next day. The fear of fairies particularly comes across very strongly. Was it as pervasive as these accounts suggest?
Oh, absolutely. The fear was woven into the fabric of our lives. Stories of fairy raids were commonplace. Whispers of towns destroyed, people vanished, we all wore iron bracelets.
Iron bracelets.
Kept ash wood over our doorways, clinging to those small protections, anything that might help.
It's interesting, the iron and ash wood.
They were supposed to keep the Fae away.
Such simple things, yet imbued with so much meaning. Did they actually offer any real protection? Or was it more about the feeling of security, however false?
I think it was a bit of both. The iron was said to burn their skin, the ash wood to ward off their magic, whether it was true or not. Those traditions gave us something to cling to, a sense of agency in a world where we felt so powerless.
It makes you wonder if those beliefs passed down through generations were intentionally fostered by the Fae, a way to keep humans in check.
It wouldn't surprise me. But the fear wasn't just about physical harm. It was about their magic, their power to warp reality, to enslave minds. There were whispers.
Whispers of what?
Of humans taken by the Fae. Returned years later, their memories fragmented, their souls broken. No one wants that fate.
So not just the boogeyman under the bed, but something far more insidious. And yet, amidst this fear, there was also division among humans. Regarding the Fae, the sources mention groups who worshipped them, even saw them as gods. How did you navigate that split in your community?
It was a strange dichotomy. Some clung to the old stories, the myths of benevolent Fae, protectors of nature. They formed groups. Like the Children of the Blessed, they wore blue robes and silver jewelry, always preaching about the Fae's supposed goodness.
Children of the Blessed, what an interesting name.
Regardless of whether they were gods or monsters, were the source of our fear, the reason for our hardship. That resentment was a constant undercurrent in my life back then.
Resentment, fear, a constant struggle for survival. It paints a rather bleak picture of your human life.
It wasn't all darkness. There were moments of beauty, of laughter, of love within my family.
That's good.
But those were fleeting, overshadowed by the harsh realities of our existence.
And it was against this backdrop that you crossed the wall in Prythian, a rather dramatic shift from hunting deer to facing down high lords.
Yeah.
So take us back to that day. What led you to that fateful encounter with the wolf?
It was winter, a particularly brutal one. Food was scarce, and I was desperate to provide for my family, so I went hunting.
Makes sense.
I was tracking a doe near the wall. It was a magnificent creature. It would have fed us for weeks.
A prize.
I remember feeling this surge of hope, thinking that maybe, just maybe, we would make it through the winter after all.
But fate, it seems, had other plans.
It did. As I was taking aim, I saw movement in the shadows, a flash of golden eyes watching me. Then it emerged. A wolf, larger than any I'd ever seen, powerful, sleek, and utterly terrifying.
You mentioned iron bracelets. Ashwood.
Right.
What about your arrows? Were those tipped with iron as well?
Of course. It was drilled into us from childhood. Iron to burn, ashwood to ward. I fired hoping for a clean kill.
But it wasn't a clean kill, was it?
No, that arrow meant to protect. It ultimately sealed my fate.
Because it wasn't just a wolf, was it?
It was Andras, one of Tamlin's sentinels. And my arrow meant to bring down a beast brought me face to face with a high lord.
You went home that night. Did you tell anyone what happened?
No, not then. It felt unreal. Like a dream, a bad dream.
You carried that burden alone.
We all had burdens back then.
True. What happened next?
Mhm.
When did a strange encounter in the woods become everything that followed?
We had dinner that night, as a family. Just my father, Nesta, Elaine, and me. We were struggling. But for a few moments things felt normal. Then we heard a knock at the door.
It must have been terrifying.
We froze. No one breathed. My father finally went to the door and opened it. And it was the wolf, standing there in our tiny cottage, larger than life, radiating cold. Then it spoke. It accused me of murder.
Andras, he'd come for you.
He said I killed his friend, demanded justice. It was chaos. My sisters were crying. My father tried to reason with it, but it was no use. It wanted revenge.
Your world was shattered that night.
He gave me a choice, death, or crossing the wall. Into Prythian, he said it was Fey law, an eye for an eye.
That must have been an impossible decision.
I chose Prythian. I knew the stories, the whispers around hearth fires, but I couldn't let my family pay the price for my actions.
You walked into the unknown. Did you understand the gravity of your actions at that moment?
Not fully. I knew I had done something terrible, something that would have consequences. But I was focused on survival, on getting back to my family. I hadn't truly grasped the intricate web of Fey laws, the power dynamics, the ancient grudges that govern their world.
You were about to get a crash course in Prythian politics, whether you wanted to or not.
Yeah. What a way to be introduced to the Fey world, huh?
But, you stood your ground. You defended your family, even when you were facing, the impossible.
I had to. I mean, they were all I had left. I couldn't let some Fey beast take them from me. There's still a part of me that can't believe I questioned your authority, though, knowing you could have just ended us all in a heartbeat.
I noticed that. There's this fire in you, this will to survive. Tamlin sensed it, too. He's not used to humans defying him, especially not with such ferocity.
Well, I was desperate. I was trying to bargain for my family's safety. It just felt incredibly unfair. This ancient treaty that no human ever agreed to, and yet we're bound by it.
It's a wound that festers, on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Even within the Spring Court, that tension, that power imbalance, it's always there, always simmering beneath the surface. Do you remember my reaction when you arrived at the manor?
Yeah, it was hard to miss.
Mm-hmm.
All that resentment. I was being blamed for the death of another fairy, even though I was just trying to survive. It felt like I represented everything that the Fae resented about humans.
And you became a target for my grief and anger.
Mm.
There's a long, complicated history between humans and Fae, and it isn't easily forgotten. You were surrounded by luxury, but never truly safe. You know? Did you ever feel that underlying sense of danger, even in the heart of the Spring Court?
Absolutely. Even amidst all the beauty, the paintings, the gardens, that starlight pool, there's always this sense of unease, the encounter with the Martax in the village, the Naga attack in the woods, the severed head in the garden. Those were all, they were reminders of the brutality just below the surface.
A Martax, a creature of pure violence.
Right.
It really speaks to the darkness that exists within Prythian, within all of us. And the Naga attack, you were alone. Vulnerable. It must have been terrifying.
It was. I had to rely on instincts I'd honed back in the human world. And a good dose of luck, honestly. I mean, thank goodness that Tamlin found me. The way he tore those creatures apart, I'd never witnessed that kind of power.
He's a fierce protector. But he struggles with that beast within, the primal instincts that are part of his Fey nature.
I definitely saw glimpses of it. The intensity in his eyes, the power that emanated from him, even when he was trying to appear, civilized.
Yeah, the blight weighs heavily on him. It's a corrupting force, a darkness that threatens to consume everything. This feels like the beginning, not the end.
And I have a feeling the most interesting chapters are yet to be written.
Indeed. But for now, let us savor this moment of reflection, of gratitude. It's been a truly remarkable journey.
It has, and I wouldn't trade a moment of it.
Until next time, may your path be filled with starlight and courage.